Welcome everyone to Cisco's Virtual Kitchen. New show. We're excited about this. The Butcher Lady, Canada's Butcher Lady, Taryn Barker. Welcome to your show and to SVK.
Thank you. Excited to be here for the first time.
This is the first time we've met anymore. So this is very exciting, and we're very happy to everyone to join in across the globe. We're broadcasting on 5 different social channels today, so it's very exciting for us to share this and to have Taryn on the show and stuff like that. It's outstanding. So we're gonna listen to Taryn. I'm excited just to ask you why you got into butchery. We don't typically see a lot of women in this field, and I'm excited that you are, and I think you're going to bring a lot of excitement to our shows, but also to this industry, because butchery I think has been around for billions of years, right?
Yeah, it's one of the oldest trades, they say. So yeah, it's awesome to be part of it, I think.
Why did you get into it?
So I started working in a shop when I was 15, just for a part-time job. I was just a counter girl. I was filling the trays and just helping the customers. But I think I slowly developed more of just a love for food and cooking. And my position at the shop grew, became the manager, and did different things. And I started learning how to cut meat then. And yeah, I think it just kind of kept snowballing. I don't know if I ever would have chosen butchery for myself, but I think it kind of chose me in the end to be part of it. So yeah, and I mean, yeah, it's just, I feel like my love for it grows all the time still. Learning new things and meeting new people and meeting butchers and being able to travel a bit. It's kept my love there and the fire going. So yeah.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. So what are we going to do today?
So we have two beautiful cuts from the Butcher's Block Reserve Angus. So we have a New York strip loin we're going to cut, and we also have a ribeye. And we're going to try to do a little bit more than just cut your typical New York steaks and your ribeye steak. So we'll try to give restaurants or butcher shops a little bit more of a value add from buying one piece. You can turn it into 2 or 3 different cuts. So yeah,
that's awesome. And Butcher's Block, obviously a brand of Sysco's that we've had for a long time. We're very proud of it. Exclusively, we get this from Cargill High River, so it's Alberta beef.
Yeah.
And it's something that we're very proud of and very excited to have you carve up today and talk a little bit about beef. But before we get to that, I just want to let everyone know that you can ask us questions. You can ask Taryn questions. That's a great thing about SVK shows, is that we can interact with you. So on the comment sections in Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube, ask us questions. We'll try to get to them. But please do. We love hearing from where you are and where you're watching from and all the good stuff. So what we're going to do, Tara, is we're going to break to a quick commercial. Then we're going to come back, and then we're going to get right into this and dive right into it, okay?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Not knowing when your Sysco order is going to arrive makes you feel not great. That's why we created Cisco Delivery. The Sysco Delivery app lets you know where your truck is located, when it's going to arrive, what items will be arriving, and what's happening throughout the day at all of your locations. No need to look at your phone repeatedly throughout the day. Enable notifications so that you are notified whenever there's a change in delivery, estimated time of arrival, or delay. Download today to get a real-time view and updates about your Cisco delivery.
Alrighty, let's get into it. There you go, Taryn.
All right. Cool. Yeah. So a couple of nice things that I've noticed and attributes of the meat. Definitely, it's a AAA, but not only is it the AAA, it's the top 2/3 of the AAA. So really, they are selecting the best of the best to go into this program. And I've noticed that when I've been cutting it, the marbling's beautiful, and that's really going to reflect, I think, when the customer's eating it, giving them, all the flavor. It'll be a nice juicy steak. And then on top of that, even they're certified tender by the Canadian Beef Grading Agency. So that's a pretty amazing thing as a business owner, as a restaurant, retail shop, to be certified tender and guaranteed that every time it's going to be tender. That's a complete load off your back, right? With so many different things going in and out and so many cuts of beef going in and out, to be able to say, like, every time, I'm never going to get one of these back. The customer doesn't think it's perfect. I think that's pretty amazing. So we're going to start with the New York. I'm just going to kind of start trimming. We're going to trim about 1 inch and a bit off of the one end here. Then we're going to flip it and just trim the entire bottom just so it's ready to start portioning. And then we can kind of just chat whilst we cut. But yeah, I think those two attributes are a huge selling point and a huge a plus for any business. And especially with, inventory costs and trying to keep your inventory low, that kind of thing can save you a lot when you know every piece is going to be great.
So Taryn, we have a question here
Yeah.
What's the grading similar to the U.S. market? Because we are broadcasting in the U.S.
Yeah.
And they talk about like choice in that. Where would that fit in?
Yeah, so I think I'm sorry, I'm not fully educated on the American gradings, but I think that, they have a similar single, double, triple A, and then choice, where we have prime. So I think that becomes pretty similar. So this would be, again, in the top of the top. Yeah, I think it's basically one of the top qualities you can get for the steaks. Otherwise, you'll go double A, or I guess the lower 1/3 of the AAA, which these ones are the top 2/3. So yeah, I apologize. I'm sure Sysco would have more information about the American grading, but I think it's pretty similar with the Canadian grading. Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Yeah. So we're just. Oops, sorry. Go ahead.
So no. Go ahead. I was going to ask you what you're doing there.
Yeah, I'm just trimming any of the extra fat, or there's sometimes a little bit of the rib meat left on when they take the bone off. So I'm just kind of trimming that. And then I'm going to leave most of the fat on the top. I think for me personally, especially if you're trying to portion steaks, it's nice to have a little bit of wiggle room. So once you start cutting, I always try to face the end so you end up with a nice flat piece to start. And then don't trim too much off the top, because if you're looking to get like a certain weight for your steaks, it gives you a little bit more wiggle room when you can trim the fat for each piece and make it that proper size. I think a lot of restaurants, and we try to spec about like 0.25 up or down for ounces. Mm-hmm. So I would aim to get these guys about 1 inch, and then we should be able to get about 10-ounce steaks from that. So that one's weighing at 10.4. It really just has this little bit of a lip on the end, which I can cut a smidgen of it, and then we're going to get something that's probably basically right on the 10-ounce mark, which is great. Yeah, so 10-1. So leaving that little bit of fat on it there, I think is great for restaurants, butcher shops when you're trying to portion. We sell things by the weight a lot, so we don't have to worry about that as much. But when you're trying to portion, I think that's the best way to go. And so from this New York, we're going to aim to get about 8 nice 1-inch steaks. For timing for you guys, for anyone who's cutting in a restaurant, I like to cut them all first, make sure they're a nice thickness. You can kind of weigh them as you go, so you have a good idea of where you're at. But then come back after, and then you can trim them up a little bit more. And we're gonna go about 2/3 of the way through this piece.
Now, what do some people typically do? Maybe do a little bit wrong or not recommended when they cut strip loins?
Well, we're pretty lucky with these cuts. They're pretty ready to go. But I think just maybe trimming too much. You definitely want to have that fat cap on it when you're selling it to the customer. And a little bit of the lip is ideal, right? So you really don't trim too much. Just take just what you need off and make sure you're hitting your specs for your sizes. So that way, yeah, you're not 9.8. So we're doing good there. Yeah, so that way you're not losing anything, right? You don't want to be selling steaks that are way too big, and then you're losing money on the product, or you're trimming way too much off and you don't have a way to maybe use that meat. So that would be another thing to kind of talk about and have a plan for is, yeah, what are you doing with all this fat that you're trimming off? Are you making burgers? Are you going to make meatballs? Do you have a bolognese sauce that you do? So I think that's a really important part if you're going to be portioning your own steaks in your restaurant or shop, because yeah, if you don't have a way to use that, then you're definitely going to have to charge more for your steaks, which, that's fine if your customers are willing to pay. Maybe you don't need to use it, but broth is another great way to use just the trimmings, even the trims that you might not actually want to grind. So any gristle bits or silver skin, roast them in the oven with your bones, and it just adds that extra flavor to your broth. So yeah,
Nice.
So there's lots of options. So I got these, last two. Got these all nicely trimmed. Got them all to be, because I left that little bit of fat on them, we were able to make them all basically 10 ounces. I think I had a 10.3 was the biggest, and trim a little bit off the display sides. But as chefs and cooks, you're able to kind of manipulate the meat a bit when you're cooking it, I think, too. So that gives you a bit of wiggle room also. Yeah. So now we're going to come into the end here, and we're actually going to try something new. I haven't really done much of these in my shop just because we sell a lot of New Yorks anyways. But I think more so as a value add for some restaurants, if you're looking for a leaner steak, and you maybe don't want to bring in a tenderloin as well, trimming up this New York. So basically fully denuding it, getting all the fat, gristle off, removing this bit of a cap at the end here. You can make some steaks that we're calling Manhattan steaks. And they're basically just these beautiful portioned New Yorks, but they are a beautiful lean steak. So having a smaller size option for someone, we get a lot of elderly customers. You'd really have to judge for yourself and your restaurant or your business what your clientele is like. Maybe you do have a lot of burly men coming in and all they want is 12-ounce steaks or 10-ounce steaks. So you maybe don't need to do something like this, but it's a great option if you have one piece of meat to be able to make 2 or 3 different cuts out of it. Just gives you an option there to change it up a bit. So yeah, we're just cleaning this up fully. Apologize, I've never cut meat live on camera before, so I'm taking a little bit longer. I'm a little distracted, but I think we're doing pretty good so far. Okay,
I think you're doing pretty good, yeah.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you. Okay, so now we have a fully cleaned up New York. You could leave it whole like this. It's probably about 6 inches long, and then you could maybe cut 1.5 or so inches wide to make a couple nice steaks. You'd maybe get 3 out of it. But what we've also done is then cut it in half and then cut a couple thicker. So again, we'll probably just do about 1.5 to 2 inches. So it's not crazy, but then you end up with these nice little, it almost looks like a tenderloin. And that weighs, about 6.5 ounces. So if you're looking for kind of a smaller option to have and a smaller and leaner option to have on your menu, these are great for that, and something different that people will probably ask about, which is nice. So yeah, so we got that. We got these ones cut.
Oh wow,
so we got some nice, beautiful and lean, and a nice smaller portion size. So yeah, maybe just some leaves, or maybe that's something that you grill and you slice and you put on top of a salad instead of just serving as a steak, right? You don't need 12 ounces on top of a salad, right? So something like that could be a great value add for doing that. So we got those guys. And then just quick again, talking about what we've trimmed off of it. So rendering fat, is an amazing thing. We do it at my butcher shop, and we use it to cook with. Super easy. Throw them in a pot. We do it in the oven because we don't have accessible stove. Yeah, just slow and low and let the fat render out, and it hardens nicely and it saves for a long time, so you don't have to worry. And then just going through your trim and getting the grinding meat off of it and the fat off of it so that you can use it for, your burgers, meatballs, bolognese, whatever you can. And then even some nice maybe kebab meat or a fajita meat, or even just cutting this extra for stew if it's the winter and maybe you're not going to sell barbecued kebabs in the winter. So yeah, so lots of options to go from there. And then, a bunch of nice steaks that we'll get from it as well. So yeah.
Very nice.
Good. So how does that look, Jay? That's first?
Yep.
First lineup
Looks
of steaks?
awesome.
Okay. So now we'll...
Very cool.
Good. We'll kind of
So
get
do you
going
want
with the ribeye.
We're going to cut, Tara, if it's okay, we're going to cut to a quick little commercial.
Go for it.
Because we love commercials. We're gonna give you a break for a second.
Thank you.
And we'll come back and we'll carve that big. What is that?
This is a ribeye. Boneless ribeye.
That's a ribeye.
Yeah,
oh my God. So you guys stay tuned because we're gonna see a ribeye get all chopped up. It's awesome. So and please tell us where you're watching from. We got Ken's in New York right now. He's watching us. So we'll be right back and we'll see you soon.
Not knowing when your Sysco order is going to arrive makes you feel not great. That's why we created Cisco Delivery. The Cisco Delivery app lets you know where your truck is located, when it's going to arrive, what items will be arriving, and what's happening throughout the day at all of your locations. No need to look at your phone repeatedly throughout the day. Enable notifications so that you are notified whenever there's a change in delivery, estimated time of arrival, or delay. Download today to get a real-time view and updates about your Cisco delivery.
All right, we're back.
Clap. Thank you.
All right, we're back.
Hello.
All right. Hello. Okay, let's see this ribeye. That's a big piece of meat.
Yeah, it's a good size. It looks great. The texture's nice. Yeah, everything about it just seems, really nice and on point with what they're saying about it, which is nice. And that's another little touch point about the product too. Coming from working in butcher shops, a lot of the meat we get comes in boxes of 5 or 6 pieces, right? Which is a lot. And maybe you have to order 2 because 5 is not quite enough. But maybe 12 boxes or 10 pieces is, it gets to be a little bit much. So being able to break this into a few different cuts is awesome. But the Butcher's Block Reserve comes with just 3 in a box, which I was pretty impressed with and happy about. That really helps again with the inventory control, just not getting overstocked. And I know from experience from the past that Sysco, you can get deliveries 2 or 3 times a week if you want, right? So you can order 1 case and, if it's rainy and then later in the week, the sun comes out and you can order another case, right? So I think that's pretty amazing just to be able to get the 3 pieces at a time. Yeah. So cool. We'll dive into the ribeye now. So we're just going to start by, again, just trimming it up a little bit. This one has a bit more of the rib meat left on the backside. So we'll trim that off, but don't worry too much. Most of it is great for grinding, for burgers, lots of flavor there. And then we'll clean up just a little bit of the lip off, most of the lip off. Some places like to leave more of the lip on. It can look really nice, but I think it can also look a little bit messy sometimes too. And yeah, just personal preference, because that'll be a bit fattier, right? So if you don't want to have too fatty of a steak, cleaning more of the lip off is a preferable way to go. So yeah, so we'll get this cleaned up.
Now, does the ribeye typically, because fat is flavor, I've been told, does the ribeye have a little more fat than the New York would have had?
Yeah, so it definitely will have the fat running through it more. So in the butcher shop, when people are saying, I want a steak, I want a barbecue, we always try to ask them first, do you like fat in the steak, or are
Yeah.
you gonna cut it all off anyways? Because there's no point in buying a steak that's full of fat if you're just gonna cut it all off. So the ribeye would definitely be one of those fattier steaks.
Higher flavor then.
Oh yeah, I think ribeye is probably one of my favorites. One of my favorites of the standard classic cuts. There's lots of little hidden gems in the cow, but it's a very good quality, good, like consistently good, right? But yeah, we're gonna kind of take this one down a little bit so you can see some variations. You
Okay.
can absolutely just cut this now into the same kind of thing. 1-inch steaks, in my opinion, are the best. You can get a really good cook on them kind of anyway. If you want it well, if you want it rare, it's pretty easy to cook a 1-inch steak. So for that, again, we'll just face off the end. You always want to start with a nice flat end. We'll go with some 1-inch steaks here. So this is just an example of what you could do if you were going to cut your whole piece just into some nice 1-inch steaks. So they look nice.
Wow.
They got that little bit of fat. Yep, that nice marbling in there. We have this little bit of lip, which I've left on for now. But after I weigh them, we'll probably trim some of it off. So I think with the ribeyes, you got like a 10-ounce New York. We got, about 6-ounce Manhattans. Something a little bit bigger would be nice if you're doing some ribeyes. So I would go for something around 12 ounces. So if we get that nice 1-inch thick, and then we can keep trimming just a little bit off the outside to make it look nice.
Taryn, we have a question here from
Yeah.
Brent. I'm not sure if you know this, but how big is the tail on that ribeye? And what do you
This
normally
one,
see?
yeah, this one is about 2 inches, and I believe that's spec for these guys. I think like 1.5 to 2 inches. So it was fairly big. But again, you can play with that, right? Like if you can keep that on, here, I can cut another one so we can see, but if you can keep that on and sell it as part of it, that's amazing, right? But it's a ribeye. It's going to be fattier. Most people know that. So they're not going to order a ribeye, or hopefully your staff don't encourage them to order a ribeye if they don't enjoy a fattier steak. But so now we got sorry.
I was just gonna say, and that's something that restaurateurs can educate their staff on.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
It's not that hard. So this one I've left a bit more of the lip on now. It doesn't seem to be too fatty, I don't think, in my opinion. I think that looks great. This little part is often one of the tastiest parts for me anyway. So it's great. Yeah. And then maybe it's just a smidgen bigger, right? So this one's 13 ounces now instead of just 12. But yeah, so a couple options there to have some nice bigger steak cuts. And
I love the fact
it,
that I also love the fact that you have a scale there.
yeah.
And we work and train restaurants so much to have one of those scales
Yeah.
there, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to be portioning your own steaks, there's no way you can go without it. If you're going to buy steaks already portioned, then who cares maybe, but I'm sure you use it for 100 other things, when you're doing your inventory. Shouldn't you be weighing stuff anyways too? So I don't know, but yeah, if you're going down this road and you decide that you want to portion cut your own steaks, you got to have a scale. You got to have a scale. Okay, so the next thing
is it now? Who do you recommend? I'm sorry, I asked all these questions.
That's okay.
So it's typically possibly who's cutting the steaks in the back of a restaurant is probably someone that may not have the experience. So having a scale there, I think is important.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, in a restaurant, and I can't speak for sure because I've only worked in a couple. But most of your chefs or your staff aren't going to be trained butchers. So, getting some cuts and, practicing a few times, but getting cuts that are a little easier and quite block ready can be pretty important. So I think that's why these are actually a couple great choices for restaurants, is the New York and the strip loin, because they're pretty accessible and pretty easy. So once someone does it, a handful of times, they'll be able to do it over and over again. And again, with this butcher's block, the Reserve Angus, the prices are piece weighed, or sorry, the pieces are weighed. So they should always be consistent, right? Like, again, you know, having a butcher shop, it goes through lots of beef. You can get a box of 5 steaks or 5 or 6 steak pieces, and they're all different sizes, like drastically sometimes. So they could be 2 kilograms off sometimes or more. So with this, again, for people that are maybe a little less practiced, having that consistency is so important, and so lucky,
cool.
or to have that. It would make it a lot easier for some untrained chefs to just cut some beautiful steak every time, right? So a little bit of practice goes a long way. Okay, so we've broken this down into 2 pieces now. We've taken the spinalis, or the cap, off. Hold on.
Oh, that's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah, we're back.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, these earpods never stay in my ears. Okay, so we have this spinalis, or the cap. So this is a fun kind of value add. I'd say it's only become kind of popular or more mainstream in the last few years, but it's very tender, very flavorful. Some people say that this part is the best part of the ribeye, right? So yeah, and it's very different. It might be something fun to have on a menu that not a lot of people have heard of or seen yet. So yeah, I think it could be a great.
What would you put on a menu for? What would you label it as on a menu item? Have you seen?
Probably a spinalis. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't seen it in a lot of restaurants. You could call it the ribeye, a ribeye cap steak, but I don't think that sounds as fun or playful. You know. You could have that in the description, or you know, as long as your staff know what it is, so that when people ask them those questions, they're able to answer, right? But I think having some kind of fun names, and like in the butcher shop, we're kind of lucky. We can name things kind of whatever we want sometimes, as long as we include where it comes from or what it is. But we can get creative, which is nice. And I think you can do that a bit in restaurants too. You just have to make sure your staff are educated on what it is and where it comes from and how it eats and stuff. So
Very
so
cool.
we're almost there. We cleaned the whole top and the whole bottom off. I want to get rid of all the tougher gristle and connective tissues. So it is a bit of trimming, but again, if you are able to utilize it, making broths or in your grinds, then I think you can really get a good value add out of it. So that's a piece in the end. So I have 2 options. It's not super wide. A lot of people will roll it and then cut it, but this one wouldn't give you super big pieces. So again, depending on your menu, depending if you've just done New York's, maybe you could do the spinalis and you get a smaller size portion instead of the Manhattans. But I did save one of the pieces that I did from yesterday. So I saved a second spinalis. Okay,
is that why you have the butcher rope there?
Yeah. So we're going to do a little bit of tying. So now if we roll 2 pieces together, we can get a much, nicer, bigger round steak. So we're just going to roll this guy up.
Wow.
I'm going to try to get it as tight as we can, of course, so it's not just going to fall apart. But if you tie it nicely...
Taryn, did sometimes people put spices in there and different things?
I think you absolutely could. I was kind of thinking about last night when I was doing it, making it kind of like into a Philly cheesesteak. So like slicing peppers and onions really thin. Ooh. And then, and then getting maybe some sort of like slightly firmer cheese. So you can sear it in a pan first and then finish it in the oven. But I was like, that could be a fun way to do something different with it too, right? I've done that before with prime rib roasts, where I've just stuffed it with peppers and onions and cheese and gets all melty, and so having fun with it. The only thing you'd want to think about is not putting anything too firm in it, because you're not going to cook it for that long, right? So if you put, carrots, which I don't really know why you would, but carrots or potatoes or something like that, they're not going to cook through by the time the steak's done cooking. So, something softer, something quick cooking. You could maybe do asparagus. One of my friends hates when people stuff things with asparagus, but as long as it's not going to turn into mush in the 20 minutes that you're cooking it, then it's much nicer. So yeah, or just a beautiful seasoning. If you have a nice barbecue rub, what time of year is it? Is it the middle of barbecue season? You want to do a nice barbecue rub on it. I think that could be great inside and out. Just a nice herb mixture. Sorry. I need to get something to hold these in my ear better.
We'll get some duct tape.
Yeah, but really it's okay. Okay, thanks. That'd be great. I'd love that to rip off my face after. Good. But yeah, but I think very versatile, right? It's beef, so you can really choose any flavors that you like or would want, or what things do you have in your restaurant already? That's what we try to do a lot, right? Where we're using the things we already have. I don't want to buy another 30 ingredients to make one item. So, use what you have. Use the fresh herbs you have. Use some lemon. Do porchetta with some fresh herbs and lemon and fennel, chili flakes. I think that could be beautiful and delicious as well. Okay, so she's tied.
Yeah, we have Brent here comment that he's stuffed it with spinach, cheese, and spices before. Ken stuffed it with provolone and cooked it off with a little truffle butter.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
I like that.
Okay, so you're cutting in between the ties there. You're cutting in between.
Exactly. Yeah. So I try to just tie where I want my steaks to be cut, right? So I'll make an even tie and cut right in between, and then we should get pretty even pieces from it. So yeah, so they look so good.
They do.
Lots of good marbling in there. Yeah, nice size. Again, let's see how much these are kind of weighing in at. So that's 8.5, 8.5, 8.5. So yeah, so something around 8 ounces, right? It would be a great sell for a case. So then we have something. Yeah, we got 12 ounces, we got 10 ounces, we got 6 ounces, and now we're gonna have, our 8-ounce steak cut.
Wow.
God, yeah, I think that looks great. You see?
That looks great, doesn't it?
Beauty, yeah, and not too hard, right? It's a little bit of extra work to get it off, but again, it's something that not a lot of restaurants are doing yet. Not even a lot of butcher shops are doing it yet because they're afraid to cut their ribeyes up. Really? We've never really sold them, to be honest, because we just sell so many ribeyes, and it can be scary sometimes to cut your money makers up, right?
Yeah.
But I think that once you do it a couple times, and you kind of see how nice they are. So yeah. So now we're left with the rib center from this one, the ribeye center. I'm gonna trim off a little bit. You don't have to, but there is a bit of a thick kind of piece of gristle or silver skin that runs along the top here. So I'm going to trim a little bit of it while I try to leave more of the nice fatty pieces on. Cool. Cool. And we still do have the complexus muscle that's still attached on the side here. I like to leave it on, or I would like to leave it on just because I think it makes a nicer, even piece. If you take that little bit off the end there, you're going to taper down, and your one end's going to be a lot skinnier than your other end. So I would leave the complexus on. I might trim just a little bit more of the fat off this one side here. It's got a little bit too much, but then we would just cut these into some nice steaks as well. So
very cool.
Yeah, and then for what's for sizing, I don't know. Maybe we want to go for another 8 ounce or so steak.
You wouldn't go any smaller,
9.
right? Taryn, you wouldn't reckon anything smaller?
You don't want to go too thin, right? That's when it gets to be harder to cook. So I think keeping it about 1 inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch as the thinnest. But like something like these Manhattans, right? They're smaller in size, but they're definitely still a nice thick cut, right?
Mhm,
So
mhm.
yeah, so don't go too thin. Don't go too thin, but you can change your weights. You could even cut this maybe in half all the way through and do some thicker kind of like baseball cuts.
Oh, okay.
So
That
we've
was the
got
old
two
baseball
there.
steak.
Yeah, I can. Yeah. I'll
The good
probably
old
tie a
baseball
little bit
steak.
more of this one too so we can see. I know people still come in and ask for a baseball cut, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, that's fine. Do you know how to cook it? Probably not, but we'll help you. We'll help you get there.
So what are you doing here?
Okay,
What are you tying?
so now with this rib, so we're gonna tie it again just to make it kind of a nicer, rounder shape. The two I cut first kind of, thin out, and they almost look like New Yorks in the end because they don't hold their nice round shape. So I would suggest to tie it again. It'll make it look a bit visually more appealing, and then it'll keep its thickness a little bit nicer as you're cutting them. And you can kind of vary the thickness again too. So maybe let's cut a couple baseball cuts here so we can see what that might sell like or look like. But then you're getting into definitely finishing a steak in the oven, right? If you're cutting it that thick, no way you're going to be able to pan fry it the whole way through. So then you got to watch your timings, and you got to know your skill set of your staff. Can they execute a thick steak? Would it maybe take a little bit of practice and they can get there? Great, but yeah, it could just be a nice value sell. Maybe it's baseball season. I don't really know when the professionals play baseball, but maybe around that time you do some baseball cuts for some of your your hardcore fans if you're a sports bar or you're a place that just shows different games. So from this, we did some 1-inch ones before. We're going to cut some that are maybe 1.5 inches, I think. Start with that. So again, I think these look great. They have a little bit of extra fat. I could have maybe trimmed that a little bit more, but again, it's a ribeye. So, decide what you want to sell. Do you want to sell a fatty ribeye or do you want to sell it fully trimmed up? So these ones are about 12 ounces as well, 11. So another good size. And then this one, I might just cut right in half. We got this beautiful thick piece, sear it on each side, and then finish it in the oven, butter basted in the end, or even better, basted in the beef fat that you've rendered before, the tallow that you have, and some garlic and some rosemary. And so these are 1 pound each or 16 ounces. So you can do a variation, right? You can do a couple that are a little bit smaller. If you really want to go big, you can do some nice 2-inch cut. Yeah, that gives us a good mix of products for only 2 cuts of meat, right? Doing pretty good.
Amazing.
Yeah. And then again, I mean, just go through your trim, make your soups, make your broths, make your burgers, make your meatballs, whatever you can out of this, and then you'll get way more value out of your cuts as well. So
awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Taryn, for sharing.
We did it.
This stuff. We did this, eh? And everyone else that said comments and stuff, and
we did it.
We had a lot of comments coming through. So thank you so much for everyone that joined us today on our first The Lady Butcher show from Sysco's Virtual Kitchen. And Taryn, we're going to label you as Canada's Lady Butcher. So awesome stuff. Incredible insights.
Okay.
And what you're doing is just incredible. And we thank you for that. And we'll be back with Taryn next month with another show. And I don't know what we're going to work on, but we'll work with our folks at Cargill and everything and figure out what we're going to show. But thanks again, Taryn. And everyone else, have a great rest of your day. We're back tomorrow. We got so many comments coming through as well. But we're going to be back tomorrow with our Indigenous cooking show that we're going to have out of actually Vancouver as well. So all the best, Taryn. Thanks again.
Good.
And
thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. Awesome. And we'll see you later. Okay.
See you in a month or so.
All right. Cheers.
Okay.